He has more than 25 published books to his credit, which includes poetry collections, essay collections, books of national importance, etc. That is what I just mentioned a few minutes ago. I promised him after this lecture we will publish that to begin with. He also brought out audio and video cassettes, The Message of Vedantas, a set of 3 video cassettes of Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Sri Aurobindo. He represented India at important international conferences and has given lectures in 5 continents on philosophy, culture, and environment. He was the youngest person to become a central cabinet minister and given the portfolio of the Minister of Tourism and Civil Aviation. He also served as the Minister for Health and Family Planning, as well as the Minister of Education and Culture, and he served as the Ambassador of India to USA, President of People's Commission on Environment and Development, and Indian Council for Cultural Relations, and he is the founder of Virat Hindu Samaj, which seeks social reforms as the basis of universal Vedantic values. He was also appointed as the Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Banaras Hindu University, and Jammu and Kashmir University, and he served as Chairman of Auroville Foundation, Ethics Committee of the Rajya Sabha, Member of Standing Committee on External Affairs, and Member Consultative Committee of Home Affairs, and is the recipient of several awards and honors, including Padma Vibhushan by the President of India, honorary doctorates from Banaras Hindu University, Aligarh Muslim University, and Soka University, Tokyo, Japan, and National Integration Award, representative of India on the Executive Board of UNESCO. Today, Dr. Karan Singh will talk about 4 pillars of learning. With these few words, I once again welcome Dr. Karan Singh, the distinguished scholars, writers, media personalities who are assembled here, and every one of you. Thank you all. Now, I request Dr. Karan Singh to deliver his lecture.
Secretary, office bearers and members of the Sahitya Academy, distinguished guests and fellow lovers of literature, representatives of the press and electronic media, and friends. I consider it an honor and a privilege to revisit this great institution, the Sahitya Academy, our National Academy of Letters, founded in 1954 by Maulana Azad, with Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, no less, as its first president, Dr. Radhakrishnan, Dr. Zakir Hussain, and other luminaries on the executive committee. In fact, I remember I was Sadr-e-Riyasat up in Jammu and Kashmir when this was inaugurated. I remember reading the press reports at that time also. And over these 6.5 decades, the Sahitya Academy has done excellent work through its publications, its activities, its seminars, its literary awards, covering all the languages of India. That's very important because India is a multilingual state and Indian literature cannot be confined to any one language. Each one of our languages has produced great literature. And I think that is unique because I don't think that there is in fact no other country in the world which has this sort of diversity. If we have to compare it, we can compare it with the whole of Europe. The whole of Europe, from Portugal all the way to Russia and from Norway all the way down to Greece. That many languages are spoken in India and literature is there. Now, what is the definition of Sahitya? Bhasha or Shabd ka sahit bhav iti Sahitya. A harmonious relationship between word and meaning. I think that's a very good, there are many definitions. This is one of them. I would like to quote Dr. Radhakrishnan in his address at the opening session. Here is what he says. The phrase Sahitya Academy combines 2 words, Sahitya and Academy. Sahitya is Sanskrit, Academy is Greek. This name suggests our universal outlook and aspiration. Sahitya is a literary composition. Academy is an assembly of men, he should have added, and women. That was before the sexist revolution. An assembly of men who are interested in the subject. So Sahitya will be an assembly of all those who are interested in creative and critical literature. It is the purpose of this academy to recognize men of achievement in letters, encourage men of promise in letters, to educate public taste, and to improve standards of literature and literary criticism. I think the Sahitya Academy has certainly lived up to that, and I would like to congratulate all those connected with the Sahitya Academy for their achievements. I also have a quote from Sri Aurobindo, which is excerpted from an article he wrote in 1919 on Indian literature, long article, but it's one sentence. The greatness of a literature lies first in the greatness and worth of its substance, the value of its thought, and the beauty of its forms, but also in the degree to which, satisfying the highest condition of the art of speech, it avails to bring out and raise the soul and life of the living and the ideal mind of a people, an age, a culture, through the genius of some of its greatest and most sensitive representative spirits. So, obviously, for any civilization, literature is extremely important, and India has a long and rich literary tradition going back thousands of years. If we even begin with the Vedas and the Upanishads, which are marvelous literature apart from being great spiritual texts, we've had so many languages. Sanskrit, of course, is unique, but many other languages in India, including classical languages like Persian, for example, or Tamil and other very ancient languages, Telugu, each one of them have produced great writers, and including my mother tongue Dogri, which is one of the latest entrants to the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Although it's a very small language, small meaning is not spoken by a large number of people, but every language is important, howsoever large or howsoever small. And this is really quite extraordinary that in all these languages there's been literature produced, creative literature, and is continuing to be produced even now. I must tell you, as chairman of the Gyanpeeth Award Selection Committee for 12 years, I had the opportunity of interacting with the whole spectrum of great literary people from across the language barrier. 12 years is a long time, and we used to have to give this award every year, and we had to go through a lot. So I learned a great deal from that. And I myself am a lover of literature. If any of you have been to my Jammu library, there are 25,000 books there, which I have accumulated over the last, 70 years. And I'm also, understand the difference between prose and poetry. Prose is written to be read. Poetry is written to be heard. There are different organs involved. The brain is the same, but in the prose you read, and poetry, unless you hear poetry, memory. I said, okay, I'll tell you, I'll recite a poem, which I learned 60 years ago. Should I recite it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
It's a poem by Sri Aurobindo. It's called Who. In the blue of the sky and the green of the forest, whose is the hand that was painted the glow? When the winds were asleep in the womb of the ether, who was it roused them and bade them to blow? He's lost in the heart in the cavern of nature. He's found in the brain where he builds up the thought. In the pattern and bloom of the flowers he is woven. In the luminous net of the stars he is caught. In the strength of a man, in the beauty of woman. In the laugh of a boy and the blush of a girl. The hand that sent Jupiter spinning through heaven spends all his cunning to fashion a curl. These are his works and his ways and his shadows. But where is he then? By what name is he known? Is he Brahma or Vishnu, a man or a woman, bodied or bodiless, twin or alone? We have love for a boy who is dark and resplendent. A woman is lord of us, naked and fierce. We've seen him amuse on the snows of the mountain. We've watched him at work in the heart of the spheres. We will tell the whole world of his ways and his cunning, his rapture of torture and passion and pain. He delights in our sorrow and drives us to weeping, then endures with his joy and his beauty again. All music is only the sound of his laughter. All beauty, the smile of his passionate bliss. Our lives are his heartbeats. Our rapture, the bridal of Radha and Krishna. Our love is their kiss. His strength that is loud in the blare of the trumpets. And he rides in the car and he strikes in the spears. He slays without stint and is full of compassion. He wars for the world in his ultimate years. In the sweep of the worlds, in the surge of the ages, ineffable, mighty, majestic and pure, beyond the last pinnacle seized by the thinker, he is thrown in his seats that forever endure. The master of man and his infinite lover is close to our hearts and we vision to see. We are blind with our pride and the pomp of our passions. We are bound in our thoughts where we hold ourselves free. It is he in the sun who is ageless and deathless, and into the midnight his shadow is thrown. When darkness was blind and engulfed within darkness, he was seated within it, immense and alone. आजकल बच्चे दो लाइन याद रखते हैं. What's happening is we are so dependent upon these machines that I think our own faculties are beginning to atrophy, which I think is a pity. Anyhow. Okay, now let me come to my topic, which is the 4 pillars of learning. In 1993, the UNESCO Commission for Education in the 21st Century was set up, consisting of 15 members drawn from around the world in their personal capacities. And I had the privilege of being one of them. It was chaired by the eminent European statesman Jacques Delors. In 1996, we presented to the UNESCO, after extensive consultations around the world, a report entitled Learning the Treasure Within. I think it's a very important title, Learning the Treasure Within. And that report is a very interesting, wide-ranging report. It has lots of valuable suggestions. But inter alia, among other things, it identified what we call the 4 pillars of learning. And I want to do that because I feel that learning in a way is directly linked with literature. Because ultimately what we learn is what is going to be reflected in our literature and the way we learn it. So the 4 pillars of learning. The first is learning to know. The Jnana Yoga. Ano Bhadragita Boyantu Vishwa. Let noble thoughts come to us from every side. There's a massive explosion now of information. From information we've got to construct knowledge, and from knowledge we've got to then abstract wisdom. So that is the whole thing. Now there's so much material, but the capacity to know is very important. I mean, all the physics or the chemistry or geography, whatever I learned at school is totally now obsolete. But I have learned the capacity to know, to learn. And always remember, the Indic religions are dialogic religions. Unlike the revealed religions of the West, Indian religions are dialogic religions. The Upanishads, which are our greatest Shastra, I feel, are dialogues between the Guru and the Shishya. The Gita itself is a dialogue. The Buddha dialogued all his life with his followers. Lord Mahavira did the same. So this capacity for dialogue and for asking questions is built into the texture of our civilizational DNA. Because the Upanishads are a result of very sharp questions. I don't want to go into that at the moment. If I am talking on any other occasion on Vedanta, I'll go into that. They ask very sharp questions. Why are we here? What are we doing here? What motivates us to speak? Those sort of fundamental questions are asked by the disciples. So unless we are able to ask questions, we will not learn. And therefore, I think it's very important that we've got to, in our educational system, we've got to encourage students to ask questions. Not just here it is, here is a textbook, here are the notes, and just write your exam and get your marks. I don't know how they get 99% nowadays in English. I mean, it's quite unbelievable. मैं दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में मेरा रिकॉर्ड है 70% का. आजकल 95 के नीचे बात ही नहीं कोई करता. पता है या तो हम मूर्ख से या ये ज्यादा होशियार हो गए सारे युवा कोई ना कोई वजह तो होगी. However, that's methodology. What I mean is methodology has got to be interactive at some point in time. There has to be the teacher, there has to be the student. Of course, if you're learning from a machine, then it can't be interactive any longer. I suppose it can, I do not know. But anyhow, what I'm saying is, therefore, the presence of a living teacher and the capacity to ask questions, I think, is very important. And therefore, learning to know is not as simple as it is. Not learning to rut up some it's learning the capacity to learn. So the capacity to learn is the first pillar of learning. The second pillar is learning to do. Unless education teaches us the capacity to do some productive activity, it becomes meaningless. Because in India, unfortunately, the mismatch has been caused between learning to know and learning to do, resulting in massive educated unemployment. Young people just go meaninglessly from school to college and get a degree and go on, and they become unemployed and unemployable ultimately because they are not employed. So it is very important, I feel, that learning to do. It doesn't matter what you learn to do. There's a marvelous quote by Gardner in one of his books, The Ambidextrous Universe, where he says, a society that honors philosophy because it looks upon it as a noble profession and looks down on plumbing because it looks upon it as a lowly profession will get the worst of both worlds. Neither its theories nor its pipes will hold water. I think that's a rather good quote because people say, no, you can say Karan, everybody cannot be a government servant. People have to learn skills, and that is why I like this idea of the skill development. And I think what we need, we have fine higher education institutions, we have this thing, but where are the ITIs in between? We need thousands of ITIs between school and college. Because unless you are taught some kind of a craft to do something, the whole thing becomes a waste of resources and a great burden upon the young people. Because having all their life studied, they find themselves at the end of the road with nothing to do. And now India is developing, all sorts of new opportunities are opening up with technology also. Technology sometimes reduces employment, but very often increases it also. So this is an opportunity really where learning to do has got to be built into our new educational policy. By the way, does anybody know when that new education policy is going to come out? It's been on the anvil for so long. The anvil must have collapsed by now also, before the policy comes out. So anyhow, we've been waiting breathlessly for many years, and let's hope one day we'll get a policy. We have a very good man chairing it, Professor Kasturi Rangan. He's a good friend of mine. But whatever it is, my point is that we need to have this built into our thing, learning to do. And learning to do must also involve a positive approach to learning. The Gita says work must be shuchir, daksha. It must be efficient, it must be clear. So that action rightly performed also is a spiritual offering. And therefore, it's very important, I think, that yoga, karma, sukhaushalam, yoga is skill in works. That is very significant. So learning to do doesn't just mean doing something in a slipshod manner. It means doing. I'll tell you a story. When Rajaraja Chola was building the great Brihadishvara temple 1,000 years ago in Tanjavur, he went out to inspect the work. He came across a man who was cutting stone. He said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Sir, I'm cutting stone." He went a little further. Another man who was doing the same thing. "What are you doing?" He said, "Sir, I'm earning a living." He went to the third person, doing the same thing. And "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm building a great temple." It all depends on the attitude. The first one was the tamasic attitude. He was just mechanically cutting stone. The second one, at least, was rajasic. He knew he was earning for his family. The third one, while doing those two, had the vision of the great temple. So unless we have a vision of the great India that we are hoping to build, what Jawaharlal Nehru called the exciting adventure of building a new India, unless that excitement is recreated, and unless whatever we do is done in a spirit of dedication and enthusiasm, it will not be worthwhile. So I think learning to do is also very important. It's not just mechanical doing, it's learning to do with thoughtfulness, awareness, and dedication. The first pillar was learning to know, the Jnana Yoga. The second pillar was learning to do, the Karma Yoga. The third pillar is learning to live together, the Sahayoga. Sahanavavatu, Sahanavabhunuktu, Sahiviryam Karvavahi, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahi. This whole theory, this whole concept we have in our culture, that we must work together, we must live together, we must achieve together, that is very important. And because learning to live together, unless we do that, particularly in a country like India, with so much diversity in every single field, whether it is religion, whether it is caste, whether it is language, dress, food, whatever. Unless we learn to live together harmoniously, India cannot really rise to its full stage. And one of the most distressing things in recent times is the revival and recrudescence of inter-caste and interfaith disharmony. That, I think, is something which is very, very unfortunate, and it really does not help to build the new India. Now, learning to live together involves a whole spectrum of value systems, value-based educational programs. And I have identified 5 sets of values which I briefly put before you, because each one can develop into a full deck. Family values, societal values, interfaith values, environmental values, and global values. Family values. Unless there is some harmony and courtesy in the family, how do you expect young people to grow up with a sense of responsibility? If the family is dysfunctional, if there is constant tension between the husband and the wife, or the parents and the children, then obviously it adversely affects the psyche of young people. And there are two things in this. There is the husband-wife relationship and the parent-child relationship. The husband-wife relationship, we again have, if we go back to our culture, we have the concept of Ardhanarishwar. I'm not saying women were treated in that way, but the concept is there. Idea that men and women are equal is there. Wherever we worship Lakshmi Narayan, we worship Radha Krishna, we worship Sita Ram, we worship Parvati Shankar. Always the woman first, the female first. So the feminine and the masculine have got to be integrated. There cannot be a domination of one over the other. Therefore, I think it's very important that there is one reign of the family. The second is between the parents and the children. My view is, I may be wrong, my view is that Indian parents are too possessive. We want to run the lives of our children. It's not possible any longer. Every child comes into his own or her own with their own karma. DNA, if you like, whatever you want to call it, DNA or karma or whatever explanation you want to give, they have their own karma. You can certainly help and warn and encourage, but you cannot run their lives. So we should be over-possessive. On the other hand, the young people must also realize that they owe a great deal to the parents. They can't just abandon them, as is happening. In fact, this abandonment, by the way, is not new. Go back to Shankaracharya in his Bhajagovindam. He has a marvelous thing. Yavat vitto pardan sakta, tavat nij parivaro rakta, paschat dhavati jarjar dehe, vartam to chidikopi lage. जब तक धन है तो सब कहते हैं मामा जी, चाचा जी, नाना जी घर, और बाद में जब बुजुर्ग हो जाते हैं धन है तो कोई भी नहीं पूछता. ये शंकराचार्य ने लिखा हो, तो नई बात नहीं, इज नॉट न्यू इन इंडिया, बट इट्स अ दुष्ट परंपरा. रिमेंबर, और परंपराज आर नॉट ऑल गुड नेसेसरली बिकॉज दे आर परंपरा. और यहाँ दुष्ट परंपराएं भी हैं और अच्छी परंपराएं भी. ये दुष्ट परंपरा है, दो को ऐसे छोड़ दिया. Therefore, there has to be a two-way traffic. The parents have to be more understanding of the children, and the children have got to respect and regard and aid their parents. So that's the first set of values, family values. Then societal values. Cleanliness, punctuality. Punctuality, that's why I'm fanatically punctual. मैं दिल्ली में बदनाम हूँ कि करण सिंह को बुलाओ तो वक्त पे पहुँच जाता है. मैंने कहा ये भी कोई अवगुण है क्या, वक्त पे पहुँचना? तो इसलिए देर हुई थी तो मैंने रिश्ता करके कॉफ़ी यहाँ मंगा ली. मैं लेट नहीं हूँगा एक मिनट. तो पंक्चुअलिटी is normal in the West. It's normal. It's nothing, no great big deal. But in India, to arrive on time itself is a charisma. And teamwork, working together, as I have said. See, then also the stress on fundamental duties. Everybody clamors for fundamental rights, and we have the right to do so because we live in a democracy. Every individual has fundamental rights, not only institutions. But how many of you, and I don't want to embarrass you by asking you to raise your hand, how many of you know that there are fundamental duties in the Constitution? आप बुद्धिजीवी लोग हैं, आप पढ़े हुए लोग हैं, आप साहित्यिक लोग हैं, कितने जनों को यहाँ बैठे हुए पता है कि हमारे यहाँ फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज हैं? एंड यू नो हाउ मेनी फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज देयर आर? Nothing. Why should the? Let me tell you. It's Part 4A of the Indian Constitution. I was on the drafting committee of the fundamental duties along with Sardar Swaran Singh. And this was the only chapter which was not amended after the emergency. There are 10 fundamental duties. Should you not put these duties up in every classroom? Should these duties not be up in every classroom, whether it's school, whether it is college, whether it is office? Nobody is interested in duties. एक हाथ से ताली नहीं बजती, याद रखो. Everybody wants their right. ये दो मुझे, ये दो मुझे, ये दो, ठीक है. What about your responsibility? You can't get everything just without fulfilling your responsibility. So my submission is that societal values include fulfilling your fundamental duties. There are 10 duties in this. You can expand the list or whatever you like. But the point that you have to do something before you can get it. That's the second set. Family values, societal values, interfaith values. We are a multi-faith country. One sentence of the Rig Veda says it all. Ekam sat viparaha bahuda vadanti. The truth is one, the why is followed by many means. That is the keynote of Indian culture and civilization. We have never said this is the only way to salvation. It's very, very important. Because there are many religions which say no, this is the only way. Otherwise you either boil in hell or whatever will happen to you. But this is the only way to it. We have never accepted. There are so many different, that is why Hinduism has always been one of the most inclusive religions in the world. Kitne panth hai? How many different gurus, how many different ways to go? Of the major religions, all 9 religions flourish in India. 4 Indic religions, Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism and Sikhism, born in India. 5 religions came to us from West Asia. Zarathustrians, when they fled the Muslim invasion of Persia. The Jews, we had a good flourishing community in the south. Many of them have gone to Israel now, but they're still there. Then the Christians, AD 57, almost immediately after the lifetime of Jesus, St. Thomas came to South India. Then the Muslims came in 2 incarnations. The iconoclasts, the fanatics, who broke our temples and ground our idols into dust, they are not remembered with any happiness. But there are Muslims who settled in India, who built beautiful gardens, who built beautiful monuments. And then there is the Sufi strain. Don't forget the Sufis also, it's the opposite pole from ISIS. Sufis are full of love and humanity and insanity. And the greatest Muslim shrines outside of Makkah, Medina themselves is the Dargah of Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti in Ajmer, or Khwaja Nizamuddin next door here, or Chirar Sharif in Kashmir, or Makhdoom or Baba Rishi, or jahan bachpan mein jaake hazri bharte the. So we have got to realize the Darbars of the greatest Sikh shrines are all here, the Jain shrines are all here, there are temples. The Baha'i faith also now has developed into a worldwide faith. They also have the beautiful Baha'i temple. So interfaith values, I think, are very important, and these have to be inculcated during the education system. Because otherwise, what is happening nowadays is children are growing up with a distorted sense of the importance of other religions, and hence, one thing let me tell you, history has told us, and I have myself been witness to this, whenever there is fundamentalism and fanaticism, it always ends in disaster for that community. Karan was saying that he was working for Tamil Shrine. What happened? Thousands of Tamils were destroyed in the process, lakhs of them. What happened here in the Punjab? What is happening in ISIS? As a result of ISIS, millions and millions of Muslims have been killed. So fanaticism and fundamentalism ultimately destroys the religion which supports it. Something very important to remember. History tells us that. And I've been a witness, living witness to what has happened over all these years. So therefore, interfaith values are of the essence. Now what we should do I don't want to go into that, that's a different matter. Can we teach the fundamentals of all religions? I had come out with a book, Unity and Diversity, in which there was extracts from all the great religions of the world. If that one book comes into the hands of children, that would be enough. You see, अच्छा ये Islam ये भी कहता है, अच्छा Christianity ये भी कहता है. But we we're so afraid of talking about religion that we put the baby out along with the basket. नहीं ये secularism फिर हमारी इसमें दबा पड़ जाएगा. I don't agree. Secularism does not mean giving up religion. Please understand that. I've been doing Vedanta all my life around the world. Secularism means sarva dharma samabhava. Equal respect for all religions. Equal reverence for all religions. That is the tradition. That is the Upanishadic tradition. That is Swami Vivekananda tradition, Dr. Radhakrishna tradition. That is the tradition we are trying to follow. That I would submit is really the true Hinduism. There's a lot of debate about what is Hinduism. In my view, this is the essential part of Hinduism, Sarva Dharma Samabhava. Then the fourth, environmental values. Environmental values, global warming is no longer just a theory. It is upon us. We can see the glaciers are melting, the seas are rising. Erratic weather conditions have begun developing around the world, whether they are hurricanes or tornadoes or great drought or floods, and the whole thing is getting out of. Because ultimately, if you destroy nature, you will also be destroyed. And here again, let me go back to our tradition. You see, there's a lot in our tradition that can be creatively used. It doesn't have to be used in a negative manner. If you take the Atharva Veda, the Bhumi Suktam, 63 verses, the most integrated and integral statement of environmental values in any text in the world, I think. 63 verses. Where they say that whatever we take from the earth, we must give back. We must not destroy what is around. Because our seers realize if you destroy the forests, if you destroy the mountains, if you destroy the rivers, ultimately you get destroyed. That is why a sacred forest says, ये देवी का वन है, ये देवी की बावली है, ये शिव जी का बाग, because so that people realize that all these natural phenomena are in fact divine in the sense that they support us. This being Vishasiddharini. The earth supports us. And if we destroy the earth, this is what happens. I don't want to go into this in long. I've had a long interaction with this. I was in Stockholm for the first UN conference on the human environment. Delegation led by Indira Gandhi. I was on that. And right down to the Paris Agreement, which now America has resigned from, which is a shame and a disgrace. Whatever it is, the looming dangers. And I suggest that for those of you who are interested, Amitabh Ghosh, who is a very distinguished writer, has written a book called The Great Derangement. Please read that book. It's not a fiction book, it's not a novel. He said, if we do survive, people in the future will not believe that there was such a great threat looming up before humanity and nobody was interested. No film is made on it, no book is written on it, nothing. A few environmental activists shout from here and there, not enough. So environmental values are extremely important for our survival. That is why they have to be inculcated again. I'm talking about inculcating these values into our education. Many children, unfortunately, living in cities don't see a tree. They can be taken out, they can be shown the beauty of a tree, just one tree. One chinar tree in Kashmir is worth 1,000 pages of written literature. The glory of the tree, the way the leaves change color from green to russet when October comes. तो देखता है कोई, does anybody see it? Do we appreciate it? दरख्त है, छोड़ो कर क्या बनता है? So we must realize that every part of nature, the flower, the beauty of a flower, has a divine fragrance. And finally, global values. Values for a global society. And here again, we have this extraordinary statement. Ayam nija parvo veti gananam lagu chetasam udar charita naam tu vasudhi bhukti. ये मेरा है, ये तुम्हारा है. It is narrow and lesser way of looking at it. For those of the higher consciousness, Udar Chaitanam tu Vasudha Eva Kutumbakam. The word itself is a family. Nothing to do with Vasudev. Many people here mispronounce it and they think it has something to do with Vasudev Krishna. वो उच्चारण ही गलत हो जाता है उनका. कोई वासुदेव कहता है, वसुदेव कहता है. इससे वसुधा एव कुटुंबकम. The word itself is a family. But look at that great thought. Thousands of years ago. All these values that I am talking about are there in our culture, provided these are the ones that we stress. Everybody says, why are we going back? We should go back for these sort of things, not for the other things. I don't want to mention what other things you can go back to. For example, casteism is also a parampara. It's a dusht parampara. It's against every canon of Vedanta. In Vedanta says, Ishvara sarabhutana hrideshiti. The divine resides in every being. How can you discriminate against a person on the basis of caste or creed or color? So that is not the parampara we want. We want the Vedantic parampara. All the things that I have told you today are from the Vedanta. They are not made up by me. So globalization, the key is Vasudeva Kutumbakam. What happened was that towards the end of the 20th century, we had the feeling that we were moving towards a global society. I remember myself going around the world talking about the importance of global. But there's been a backlash. And now we are in a sort of anti-global sort of situation where the forces of ultra-nationalism are reasserting. Nothing against nationalism. But as Rabindranath Tagore, Gurudev, or Sri Aurobindo, they all finally came to the conclusion that nationalism is great, but it's by itself not enough. At some point we have to transcend. Gurudev said that very clearly in his articles on nationalism. Sri Aurobindo finally came to that conclusion. Now, what are the reasons? I don't want to go into it in any detail. We've had two black swan events. I don't think anybody in the audience knows what a black swan event is. A black swan event is an entirely unexpected event with incalculable consequences. Because there's a book called The Black Swan. It's a very interesting book. Because they said everybody thought swans were always white. And some said, no, I've seen a black swan. So they said, no, it can't be, it can't be. So a black swan event is an entirely unexpected event with momentous consequences. We've had two black swan events in the last 2 or 3 years. The first was Brexit. We were hoping the European Union would get together. We were hoping the SARC would one day develop like the European Union. But the European Union itself is now tottering because the British of all people have decided to pull out. And the second is Trump. The less said about that, the better. I don't think I need to go into any details about it. These two totally unexpected events with incalculable consequences. As a result of which the whole process of globalization seems to be halted temporarily. So friends, what did I say? I said the first is learning to know, second is learning to do, the third is learning to live together with these 5 value systems, and the fourth and final pillar of learning is very important. Learning to be. Atma Yoga. देखिए, ज्ञान योग, कर्म योग, सहयोग, आत्मा. I'm interpreting these in terms of our own civilizational background. Learning to be. What are we really? Life is not a meaningless journey from the womb to the tomb. It is a unique opportunity for the exciting adventure of consciousness development. Every great scripture has that. You see, the Francis Thompson, for example, has a marvelous poem, not where the wheeling systems darken, and our benumbed conceiving souls, the drift of pinions would be hearkened, beats at our own clay shuttered pores. The angels keep their ancient faces. Turn but a stone and start a wing. 'Tis he, it is your estranged faces that miss the many splendored thing. Many splendid light of the Atman. What the Bible calls the light that lighteth every man that comes into the world. The Noor-e-Ilahi of the Sufis. Ek Omkar of the Sikh Gurus. That is the light that we should see. Allama Iqbal has said it better probably than anybody else. खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रज़ा. raise your consciousness to such a level that before taking any decision, the divine will consult you. It's a way of saying, Khudi ki bulandi, that's what yoga is all about. And so every great religion has this inner message, provided we are able to understand. And that is why in life we've got to move towards learning to be, whether you do it through meditation or through prayer or through yoga or through Tai Chi or Zen or whatever you like, whatever methodology you use, that's not the point. The point is we must at least identify some form of inner work. People skim through life without once looking deep within, and ultimately they find life is run out. Nai hayat aayi kaza le chali chale, apni khushi na aaye, na apni khushi. Therefore use this opportunity for God's sake. And this must be also taught to the children, that life is a very unique opportunity for inner growth. And so friends, learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, learning to be, I suggest, constitutes an integrated philosophy of life, which I think we must, all of us, try and accept. And all of us who are connected with literature and education have a grave responsibility for nurturing future generations. I'll close with that image of that most beautiful photograph ever taken, the photograph of planet Earth taken by NASA, you remember? That is the first time, we are the first generation who have seen the Earth. No generation before us, however great they may have been, ever saw what the Earth looked like. We saw that photograph. That is what our Earth is. That is Bhavani Vasundhara. That is Gaia. That is the Earth that has nurtured us from the slime of the primeval ocean billions of years ago to where we are today. Are we going to destroy that Earth? Through our petty jealousies and our hatreds and our animosities and our fundamentalisms and our fanaticism? Or are we going to nurture that Earth so that together we can all build a peaceful and an integrated global society? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karan Singh ji, for your very lovely and scholarly lecture on 4 pillars of learning. As promised earlier, we will definitely publish this lecture as a booklet.
You don't have to do that.
No, we should, sir. And many of us might have read or heard about learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to live together. But this evening, at least I stand again after having listened to you, and your clarity of thought and power of memory is a lesson for all of us. आप एक मिनट रुकिए, बैठिए जरा. So thank you very much once again for your very scholarly lecture, sir. We will open this for a question answer session just for 10 minutes. So whoever wants to ask any kind of question, not comments on the lecture, only question, come over here and say your name and very brief questions. इधर आके बोलिए.
What is the name of that book which you mentioned by Amitabh Ghosh?
It's called The Great Derangement. D-E-R-A-N-G-E-M-E-N-T. The Great Derangement. You can ask from there also. You don't have to come. Okay.
I can make a comment, not a question.
A comment.
Please. Sir, on 14th November 2000, a recommendation was made by the NCRT that basics of all the religions must be made known to every child. They should know the common.
डॉक्टर राजपूत आप इधर आ जाए सब लोग सुन पाए
ये माइक दो माइक है सर कॉर्डर प्लीज
What do you think is going to be called?
नो बोल
You want to मेरा अभी जवाब देना.
Sir, the recommendation was children must be made aware of basics of all the religions of the people. They should know the commonalities and learn to respect differences. And then we had mentioned 5 values. Every teacher should, whatever he is doing, whether teaching or organizing sports, 5 values: truth, peace, non-violence, dharma, and love. Now, on 12th September 2002, this recommendation was scrutinized by the Supreme Court of India, a three-judge bench, and they said this should have been done 50 years ago. In 2002, they said. Unfortunately, it has been given up. The basics of all religions, our idea was, as the children grow, then they will be more interested in the philosophical aspects. But sir, we had also written a caution that no rituals, no dogmas shall be taken up. I am convinced, sir, that if children know about their religion, my friend, my neighbor, they will definitely develop respect, because then they will know the communities, which I have learned from your book. And on fundamental duties, Dr. Karan Singh was one of the distinguished members of a committee which submitted reports in 1999 under Chairman Verma ji, Professor J.S. Verma. Yes.
I have one question. I wanted to know whether UNESCO has any feedback as to which country has implemented this curriculum for the 21st century, learning the treasure within.
No, I don't think they've done a proper survey of that. They should.
Because implementation, if they implement, then
Yes.
the world should have
No, but
transformed for a better
we
place.
can't force implementation. We put out the report. It's for each government to decide what they want.
Indian government has incorporated as part of its own curriculum framework.
They should do that. Can I judge it?
सर डॉक्टर विनोद तिवारी सर बहुत ही सुंदर वो जो सजेशन दिया जाता है कि सभी धर्मों की जो सुंदर बातें हैं, जो मौलिक बातें हैं, उसको लागू करने के लिए तो हम लोग क्यों नहीं कर पाए अभी तक 70 वर्षों में अपने भारतीय बच्चों को ये क्यों नहीं पढ़ा पाए हर एक धर्मों की सुंदर जो फंडामेंटल जो वैल्यूज हैं।
इसलिए कि धर्म के नाम से हम घबराने लगे।
तो क्यों घबराने लगे?
इसलिए घबराने लगे कि धर्म का दुरुपयोग भी होता है। इसलिए हमने सोचा कि धर्म के चक्कर लगाएं, कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि कल को वो उल्टा पड़ जाए और दुरुपयोग हो जाए। मुझे लगता है यही कारण। हाँ जी।
Sir, I am Sanjay Kumar.
हाँ सर जी।
I am Principal Control Defense Council. So my question is, out of these pillars, 4 pillars which you have mentioned, which is the most important, number one, and number two is that how to inculcate the value system in our children. That they are going to school, they are studying with a full bag of load and all. How to do it most conveniently?
As far as which is most important, my own comprehension is we need all four. You can't, if you skip any one of them, then the whole thing will collapse. We need to know, we know what to do, we need to live together, and we also need to have an inner plan. As far as how it can be put into one minute, or as well as how it can be put, it has to be involved in the education system from the very beginning. Yes, sir. यहाँ एक आप बैठे हैं फिर उसके बाद आप बोलिए.
सर, अभी आपने धर्म और राजनीति की बात करी.
जी.
तो हमारे स्वच्छ में सेकुलरिज्म का नाम दिया गया है, जो आजकल बड़ा डिबेटेबल है. क्या आप सोचते हैं कि अगर ये सेकुलरिज्म को आगे बढ़ाया जा सकता है?
क्या किया जा सकता है?
सेकुलरिज्म रखा जा सकता है.
हाँ, देखिए सेकुलरिज्म की परिभाषा क्या है, प्रश्न वही है कि सेकुलरिज्म की एक परिभाषा है, कई परिभाषा है. मार्क्सिस्ट जो है उनकी परिभाषा ये है कि रिजेक्शन ऑफ रिलीजन, नहीं एंटी रिलीजन. आई आस्क्ड क्रुश्चोव में गया था मॉस्को 1961 में. क्रुश्चोव ने हमारे लिए पार्टी दी थी क्रेमलिन में. मैंने उनको पूछा, मैं कहा जनरल सेक्रेटरी, कैन यू इन योर कंट्री, सोवियत यूनियन था, कैन यू बी अ मेंबर ऑफ द CPSU, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and also be a believer? He said, no. We have to be atheistic. We respect religions, but to be a member of the CPSU. And I asked the same question to Hu Jintao in 2008 in Beijing. He gave me the same answer. So the communist secularism is out with religion, against it. Then there's the Fabian socialist approach, rejection of religion. छोड़ो जी, ये पुरानी बातें हैं, जिन्हीं लोग पढ़ लिखेंगे वो भूल जाएंगे, ये सारी what is the use of this? You know, it's a sort of rejection of it. Then there's another way of looking at it, which says no, like we say in the Vedanta, secularism is a positive attitude. It's nothing to do with that church and वो Henry VIII की किसने शादी करनी थी और क्या उसको वो मिल गया, divorce मिला या नहीं मिला. That's all totally unapplicable to India. Our secularism, our constitution makers, if you read the constitution, Constituent Assembly report, you will see that they really meant this equal respect for all. Because don't forget we've been through the trauma of partition. And so none of you, very few of you may even recall what the situation was like at that time. So therefore they had to be careful, therefore they had secularism. And the fourth one is to say that the secularism को बिल्कुल फेंक दो, it's a bad word, it's a nonsense, it's also wrong. Secularism is there and it should be interpreted in a positive manner. हाँ जी, आप कुछ पूछे?
मेरा नाम राजीव कुमार शुक्ल है.
जी बोलिए.
You mentioned the book that Great Derangement by Amitabh Ghosh. I attended a lecture, I attended a conversation with Amitabh Ghosh had with Sunita Narayan ji.
Yeah.
And there he mentioned, both of them in fact mentioned, but Amitabh Ghosh propounded the theory that political parties have to be made aware that environmental consciousness is going to be a great political issue important for votes. The way, to some extent, it is there in certain countries where there are green parties.
Yes.
You have been a part of the political process of this country.
Yes.
सारी public life आपने देखी है. What आपको क्या संभावना लगती है कि हमारी राजनीतिक दल इस समस्या को, पर्यावरण की समस्या को, पृथ्वी के बचे रहने की समस्या को लेकर कितने गंभीर होने वाले?
मैं बताऊँ आपको, जहाँ तक इंदिरा गांधी का प्रश्न है, क्योंकि मैं 10 वर्ष उनके मंत्रिमंडल में रहा, she was a highly dedicated conservation. एक जयराम रमेश ने किताब लिखी है, all about इंदिरा and nature. किस तरीके से उन्होंने ये टाइगर का वैसे मैंने शुरू किया था, बड़ी लंबी कहानी है, उसको जाऊँगा नहीं, लेकिन इंदिरा गांधी और she was the only head of government to go to Stockholm for the first UN conference on the human environment in 1972, and I was on her delegation because I was chairman of the Indian board for a while. Her speech there was very significant and very important. So she was very much personally involved, that I know, I can guarantee that. After that, I do not think we've had anybody else who was so deeply involved in conservation and environment. But you're absolutely right. Environment now is going to be the big issue of the future.
Life and death.
But there's always a conflict between development and environment. Development कहते हैं कि ये सब पहाड़ जो है वो सब पहाड़ हो, क्योंकि इन पहाड़ों के अंदर we have our minerals that we want to exploit. The tribals say no, for us these are not mountains, these are divine personages. So there is this constant tension between development and environment. But I think we are among the more environmentally aware countries in the world. But not enough yet. इसमें अधिक करना चाहिए. हाँ बेटा.
आपने जो ये 4 pillars of learning बताया,
जी.
तो उसको अपनी सोसाइटी में, बच्चों में या इंडिया में कैसे उसको स्प्रेड कर सकते हैं?
अब वो हमारी शिक्षा पद्धति का अंग बने तभी कर सकते हैं ना. इसीलिए मैं कह रहा था, ये जो हमने पिलर्स बताए हैं, जब तक ये विचारधारा हमारी शिक्षा पद्धति में नहीं आती हैं, तब तक नहीं होगा. व्यक्तिगत रूप है, हम हैं, आप हैं, जो हम लोगों को पता होगा, लेकिन एक सार्वजनिक रूप में बड़ा आवश्यक है कि ये हमारी शिक्षा पद्धति में इनको लाया जाए. हाँ, आप सुन रहे थे, बड़े बहुत अच्छा. सब ब्राह्मणों ने प्रश्न पूछे, आज क्या बात है? हाँ बताइए जी. अच्छा, हाँ, यहाँ ही
मैं पूछूंगा. पर्यावरण का सवाल आपने पर्यावरण के बारे में कहा, और डॉक्टर राजपूत ने उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बात कही कि नॉट रिचुअल पार्ट ऑफ द रिलीजन. ओम देवासुरास्तथा नागा यक्ष गंधर्व राक्षसा पिशाच गुहिका सिद्धा कुष्मांडा स्तर्वा खगा जनेचरा भूनिलिया वायवाधारा जंतुवा तीर्थमेते प्रयांताशु मध्यते सल्लमया. This very sloka is uttered by a common Brahmana performing his daily yajna. जब वो रोज यज्ञ करता है घर में और पितरों को तर्पण करता है, ये श्लोक का उच्चारण करता है. और इस श्लोक में सारा जो है, ओम देवा सुरास तथा नागा यक्ष गंधर्व राक्षसा पिशाचा गुहिका सिद्धा कुष्मांडास्तर्वः खगा जलेचरा भूनिलिया वायवा धारासु जंतुवा तृप्तमेते प्रयांत्वासु मध्यते सल्लम मया. So, being a student of ritual part of history, ritual part of history, I feel that rituals are The process, ritual gives a process. Rituals are made through a process by which this integrative forces of the society, inclusive character of Indian society has been built. I myself have researched on the Baidyanath cult, and I have found that with the famous shrine of Baidyanath, there are so many local deities have been associated, and all those deities came from different backgrounds, from tribal backgrounds, from low origin backgrounds, and all, including Brahmanas, worship them. Even Vajrayan religion has been appropriated by Baidyanath cult. So I do not think that we need to understand the process of the formation of several rituals. Yes, I can agree with you that tender mind cannot understand all those things. So at that level, but this not be discarded at all.
Correct.
In that context, we can protect environment as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's a very good point. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Professor.
Niroj C. Chaudhary in his book Hinduism made a very startling and very important statement that secularism is very much intertwined with Hinduism.
That's what I tried to point out.
And if secularism is taken out from Hinduism, Hinduism cannot remain as Hinduism. What is your opinion, sir?
I said it's part of the DNA of our cultural background. Now, only one more question.
Sir, like I have two questions. One is name some books which we should read in order to understand the deeper meaning of life and in order to understand the society better. One is this. Name some resources or some books which we should read in our life. And second is, you said learning of being, like the fourth pillar of learning.
Learning to be.
And in that you mentioned there should be some form of inner work, like meditation. So I would like to ask, what importance does it hold in one's life? Like inner work, what importance does it have?
Yes.
It holds in one's life.
Well, as far as books are concerned, of course, there are very great books. I don't want to mention any particular book. You can go to the great classics. For me, the Upanishads have been my main inspiration. But there are lots of other books. There are brilliant books written by Sri Aurobindo, by Swami Vivekananda, by lots of people who have written books on different subjects. You will have to find those for yourself, whichever one suits you. As far as what is the importance of the inner life, I feel, that's what I've said, that life itself is an opportunity for spiritual growth. And if you do not have an inner life at all, then you are simply living on the surface. You are not taking advantage of the opportunity for spiritual growth. Of course, if you believe that there is no such thing as spiritual growth, and then that's a different matter. But if you believe that spiritual growth is important, then I think some kind of an inner life, whether it is a religious, or whether it is meditation. For example, the Buddhists don't believe in a God, and yet they are the best meditators in the world. You can choose whatever suits your personality. ठीक रह गए वहाँ बताइए।
सर विपिन जैन प्रसार भारती में मैं पूछना चाहता क्या आपके पास कोई ऐसा आइडिया है जिससे कि कास्टिज्म खत्म किया जा सके इंडिया से?
कास्टिज्म, हाँ देखिए, कास्टिज्म तो अब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलाइज भी हो गया है, इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज भी हो गया है। क्या करेंगे? बड़ी कठिन है जगह पर।
सर एक बात है सर, ये स्वतंत्र भारत के अंदर जिस तरीके से हमारे बच्चों को बच्चे अपनी माँ के बच्चे को पूरा बोल के पाल देती हैं, लेकिन यार आज छोटे बच्चे का भी भारत सरकार जैसे अधिकार छीन करके बच्चा तो घर के अंदर रहता है, तो ना तो माता पिता का उनको प्यार मिल पाता है, तो कुछ मिल पाता है। तो ये भारत को भ्रष्टाचार में क्यों फैला जाया जा रहा है? शादी केवल इंसान में होती है, पशु को क्यों में नहीं? और माँ उनको पालती है, जैसे धरती माता हमारे सारे पेड़ पौधों को हमारे सब कुछ
कहना क्या है?
कहना ये है कि बच्चों के अधिकार को भारत सरकार छीनती क्यों?
कहाँ भारत सरकार छीन रही है भैया? उनको अधिकार दे रही है, the right to education, the right to information, सारी दुनिया राइट टू दे रखी है।
जहाँ मैं सर्विस करता हूँ सर, डिफेंस के अंदर तो सफाई कर्मचारी आती है, पैसे की कमी के कारण आती है, लेकिन ये 8 घंटे तक वहाँ रखते हैं। सफाई इंसान की केवल 1 घंटा होती है, सुबह से शाम तक केवल इंसान की। तो ऐसी पूरे कमरों की जो सफाई हो जाती है, तो सर उनको 11 बजे उनकी छुट्टी क्यों नहीं कर दी जाती कि वो अपने बच्चों को पालें सर?
वो तो पूछिए लेबर मिनिस्ट्री से।
सर वन मोर क्वेश्चन जस्ट।
कौन? आइए।
Sir, this is Krishna. You have just said that you are fond of Upanishads. And I observed that Upanishads are in the form of question and answering. And we have great value for questioning in Indian culture. Charvaka said, accepting anything without questioning is tantamount to slavery. So, these days we have stopped questioning. We have Prashnopanishad, like where Pipalada Maharshi answered so many questions of his disciples. But these days we have stopped questioning. We are accepting without any questioning. What do you say? Have we forgotten the basic Indian culture of asking questioning?
क्वेश्चन और ही हमारा नहीं होता है, उड़ जाता है, पास करने क्वेश्चन
So thank you once again, sir, for accepting our invitation and giving very scholarly lecture. And I'm sure many of us were inspired by your lecture. Not only who are present here, because we have a web live, thousands of people must be seeing this lecture and they all will inspire it. And once again, I want to reiterate that please give us this lecture for publication. And thank you once again. So I request all of you to join at a tea we have arranged outside. Thank you.